Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. I have never been before. What am I
It's
missing?
nice. It's nice this time of year. The weather is nice. Excuse me. Good
If you're like
food
me, I'm
scene.
over here coughing too, as you know. I made it. I mean, it's contagious. Oh no.
No, no, good food scene. Nice art community. Yeah, it.
Quaint.
No, it's
No.
it's a little bigger than quaint,
Okay.
but it's nice, and it's one of the most attractive things about Indianapolis is it's several hours from so many really cool cities.
Oh, yeah. That is nice. That sounds like everything in Texas. We're
Mhm.
just several hours from everything. Oh.
No, okay, I lived in Texas. It's not several hours.
Right. You want to go to Big Bend? It's 9.5.
Mhm,
So that's
mhm.
fair. Oh man. Well, we're going to be diving in today. Visionaries, leaders listening in. We're going to be talking about how passions change. And Lorraine on the spot came up with such a great title for it. I was getting real cerebral with it and like evolution of passion. She's like, why not something conversational? That was my passion. And then it wasn't. And I was like, there you go. That's why Lorraine Ball, as a marketing strategist, can just bless us so fast with decades of experience and wisdom. So, yeah, our passions change. Let's just dive right in on that subject. So, what drew your attention to that and got you thinking down this path? Because there's so many people out there that are probably in some type of transition. But tell me about where this vision came from.
So I I had a successful corporate career. And when I started thinking about going out on my own, I started thinking about, well, what would people pay me for? I know what they paid me for in corporate. And what did I really love? And one of the things that I was really good at, it was never in my job description per se, was building high performance teams. I had a lot of history going into dysfunctional organizations, figuring out what was wrong, turning them around, and transforming both the teams and the individuals into high performance. And I did that multiple times. And so as I looked at my business, I was like, I'm really good at it. That's really fun. I love the magic of finding what lights up somebody and helping them figure out how to use that well and how to work with other people and be creative. And so I built a business model that would have me in a perfect world running around the country talking to senior managers about how to build their high performance teams, doing workshops on it, and then going in and doing those deep dives to help them figure out what were the stumbling blocks, where was the communication, and I love that. I was jazzed. I was really excited,
Mm.
and I wasn't very good at selling it. And I had some gigs and did really well, and so I was like, oh, that was fun. I can do that again. And but while I was sort of trying to develop that business, people kept coming up to me going, hey, Lorraine, I know that, I know you're doing this other thing now, but you were in marketing all those years and you're really good at it. And I mean, and I was, and I always had fun with it and it was a passion, but it wasn't lighting me up the way this idea was. And they're like, well, can you help me? Well, yeah, I'll do that on the side. And the more I did it on the side, and the more success I had,
Mm.
not just for me, but for my customers, the more I was like, wow, this is really cool. And again, I'm really good at it. And I'm making a difference. And the people who I'm working with are appreciating, and all of a sudden, and no, it wasn't all of a sudden, but over time, I realized that I loved it, that it was what was waking me up every morning. And it wasn't just, okay, I love getting paid. Big fan of
Hmm.
I'm a capitalist. My mother raised a capitalist, and so I embrace it. But it wasn't just the money, because there were a lot of things I could have done for the money. it really was getting a phone call from a client saying, oh my God, we just sold this because of a lead on the website. We just got funding for our business because of the plan you helped us put together. We are moving out of our basement and we're going to put a sign on the outside of the building with our company name, and we would never have been there without you.
Ooh.
And all of a sudden I was like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do. And it made me sad, sort of like breaking up with a boyfriend, to let go of the vision of me running around team building and teaching other managers to do, because I continue to see crappy leaders in all levels.
Ooh.
And I continue to see the opportunity, and it hurts me because I know that I could help, but I also know that I have and continue to have a much bigger impact on the path that I've chosen. And so what I did was I took all of that passion around building high performance teams and turned it inward, and took everything that I knew about communication and supporting and cultivating, and created an organization that over the 19 years made a huge impact on anyone who came through that door. And much the way I have tremendous pride when I drive by the sign that says E-Imagine, because I wrote their business plan when they were 3 guys working in a basement.
Yeah.
I have tremendous pride when I see former employees or senior editors for national publications, or seriously senior managers at large agencies, and still kind of talk to them and they all say, yeah, I learned it at Roundpeg. And so I let go of my passion, but I didn't.
Right. And there's sometimes where that let go is permanent. Sometimes it's seasonal. Sometimes it comes back, right? Full circle. And that's okay. Right. That begs the question. We might come back to bad leaders versus great leaders in a little bit. But I think a lot of us question and wonder, where you see these very powerful memes or speakers say that like true passions never really change, and like, I get it. I understand like the feeling and the optimism, and like, especially if you're a leader of a multi-level marketing company and you got to convince people to stick around and fight through everything in order to win. But that's no, passions can change. It's not wrong. And so there's one of the things that you hit on. You talked about success, and success doesn't always equal happiness, but there is a certain ingredient that can make the cake sweeter. And so I look at The Sandlot, right? That's a little bit more of a fantasy. There's that kid and he's got his plastic glove and he embarrasses himself, and then the leader of the baseball team brings him out, gives him a glove, happens to hit the ball perfectly to him, and he catches it, and his summer changes instantly. Right. He then becomes confident and capable. But looking at real life examples, David Robinson of the San Antonio Spurs, long retired, right? I was thinking through as you were talking, I was like, who else represents this in real life? He was in the Air Force, a 7-footer sitting in a cockpit of an airplane, and he got into basketball in college. He had never played before. And he became one of the best top 50 players of all time by given the opportunity. And then I think of Blindside with Sandra Bullock and Michael Orr. And right, Michael was homeless. He had never played football. They got him into the game and he fell in love with it. He had the opportunity finally to do that. So sometimes people do steer us towards a new opportunity, and we need to be prepared. The one infographic I'm going to end on related to this. It's so funny. You talked about that small company. There was 3 guys who wanted to build an app, and we get so addicted to the things we want to build, right? If I want to draw something, I want to finish it. If I want to start a lemonade stand, I want to be successful with it, right? We want to accomplish things, and we want to avoid people telling us we were wrong too. So let's look at another example of this. And this infographic shows how a little bitty app called Angry Birds got started. And so here they were, three guys in 2003. They made 51 different games. 51 times they pivoted their passion on these games.
Mhm.
And in 2009, 6 years later, they were almost broke, but they wanted to make one more game. So they sketched 10 ideas per day, and one day they
Mhm.
sketched this bird.
Mhm. Yeah.
That is such in such alignment with what you're talking about how it's a process, it's an
Mhm.
evolution.
And I do not, in retrospect, when I look back over the 20, 25 years that I did this, I am not sorry. Really and truly, I am not sad that I embraced a different passion. Um, other than sometimes I look at things and think, "Oh my God, you could be so much better." But okay, whatever. But
Yeah.
I am okay. Everything
That's
you do in
healthy
life.
to acknowledge, though. Like, my life would be different if I didn't
Mhm,
have kids.
mhm,
And it doesn't take away from the fact that I love the fact that I had kids early. I get
mhm,
extra years other people don't, right?
mhm.
So we can get obsessed with looking at what we missed out on or what didn't happen, or we can choose to be centered and grateful for the things that we do have. And that's part of having a healthy mindset.
Absolutely. I mean, every day you wake up and there's a fork in the road. I'm okay. I'm a sci-fi geek, and I love these movies about these alternative universes and timelines. And if just one little thing changes, how everything ripples. And when I look at my life and I look at the choices that I made and the amazing people that I've met along the way and the incredible experiences, and I know that if this other thing that I had wanted had happened, none of that would exist. Now,
Exactly.
that might have been cool, but I'm not willing to trade. I'm not willing to trade even in my mind away any of those experiences for what might have been. And I think, as you said, it's a healthy way to look at life, and it's a really positive way to get up every morning and figure out I'm going to have a fork in the road, and whichever one I choose, it's going to be okay.
Right, exactly. And what makes me sad is the people who live in that they can't be happy for what they have. They're constantly longing for something more and out there that's existential
Mhm,
versus being able to appreciate their current reality.
mhm,
And I hope more people get the chance to dive in. And I get it. If life is hard and things are tough, it's very hard to see what's good. And um, I know what it's like to have a hard life.
mhm,
And I know what it's like to find value in even the darkest experiences that I've had.
mhm,
Sometimes I'm not good at doing that in the moment, but I think that's one of the great realities of great leaders is great
mhm,
leaders learn to see and value and appreciate each moment for what it is, and
mhm.
not beg for something different. So we're going to cut to a little bit of a break. We're going to come back. We'll talk a little bit about bad leaders and great leaders. We'll dive more into these experiences of passions. We'd love to hear from you. If you have changed gears with your passions and you found value in it, or you've found a storm of problems from doing so, or you've buried your passions, need to come back. All those stories that you have the opportunity to inspire others with what you've experienced. And that's really what the show is all about. So we'll see you guys on the other side right after this break. All right, welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Callum. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up, Vision Pros? Welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Callum, founder and CEO of First Class Business. And I'm excited to have Lorraine Ball back with us today. She's a marketing strategist. And I'll tell you what, visionaries out there, when you lack in the marketing, your vision doesn't take off. That's why I love talking to people who do marketing. It's one of the things that we do. But I always say that the best pill never wins, unfortunately. Even if we had the cure for whatever it is, whatever disease is out there, most of the time it fails and it doesn't make it to fruition. Why? because they didn't learn how to market it. And so you don't just need one marketer. I will say there is absolutely no such thing as a marketing guy or a marketing gal. No matter what they say, that is a control freak trying to help you hire them alone. It is called a department. A marketing guy or marketing gal would be harder to find than a unicorn in this world. So I recommend going to look for unicorns if you're going to look for one. But look at what perspectives you can find. Again, that's why we bring people like Lorraine on, so you can have a depth of different perspectives to help move your visions forward. Now, before I bring her back on stage, a couple of sponsored opportunities here. In fact, one marketing guru I highly recommend getting to know is none other than James Bond. This is the real James Bond. He wrote Brain Glue, and Jack Canfield, who has sold more than 100 million copies of his own book, said any entrepreneur would be an idiot not to buy Brain Glue, and it should be taught in every marketing class in every university. This book has some serious power with it. It helps your ideas become sticky. It helps you become unforgettable by helping your audience emotionally connect with your message. And if you just listen to the audio sample clip, it's got a hilarious story I'm not going to repeat on the public air on my show, but I highly recommend going and listening to that. Then there is Dave Morrow with the Hard to Kill podcast and hardtokill.org. We've joined forces with him. He's helping 100,000 veterans lose 2 million pounds collectively. We've been working with Dave for about 3 months now. Honestly, I lose track of timelines. It's been somewhere between 2 and 4 months. But Dave's workout plan has actually got me working out, and I haven't worked out in 8 years. I had a back surgery. I've avoided physical therapists and personal trainers very, very well. Somehow Dave has Miyagi'd me into doing 100 push-ups per day at this point. It did not start there. I started with one I could barely do. And he's opened his doors so that civilians can now join as well. But if you know veterans, and you know, if you're learning about the veteran community, a lot of them have a very hard time with transition back to being civilians. And we have suicide rates going through the roof right now. Dave's focus is to help veterans look good, feel good, and go about doing good. And I hope we're all willing to get behind a mission like that. Again, join us in the Hard to Kill community. It's free to join. We'd love to see you over there. And it has helped me tremendously with my health. The Water Project. We are not affiliated with the Water Project. This is something that I really just hope to continue to help people understand, because when I found out that there's millions of people who don't have access to clean drinking water, I could have just said, I can't feel that emotionally. That doesn't apply to me because I've never been thirsty in my life, but I didn't. I decided to pay attention and think through, what would my life be like? Or what would it be like to have 4 kids and to not have access to clean drinking water? We have to walk miles, and who knows what could happen to somebody on that type of a walk. I made myself start to really meditate upon this. And what I love about this organization is you actually get to pick the community that you help. And when you give $5 or $10 to that community, they will actually send you a notification and the pictures and evidence of that community and what they've been able to accomplish. This picture you're about to see reminds me of my kids on Christmas Day. And these are kids celebrating the simple reality of having clean drinking water. Talk about passions. These kids are passionate about water. What a gift it is to be able to give something like that to others. If you're not in a financial position to contribute and give back to the Water Project, my hope is that you'll just think of somebody that might be inspired by this, because you never know. If you share it with one person, that one person might fund 10 of these projects by themselves. We can do more than we give ourselves credit for simply by sharing the opportunities in the world. And we all have 8 billion people out there to help. So jump in the game with us, do what you can. And if there's another project or another cause that you'd love to see us support, please just drop it in the comments. Give us a chance to learn what it is and go in, and maybe I'll talk about that on the show as well. Lorraine Ball, thanks for joining us again on Vision Pros Live.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
And before we go anywhere, 100 push-ups a day. Way to go.
125 now. Started on Monday. So 25 sets. So 25 sets. I'm sorry, 25. 5 sets.
5 sets of 25.
Nice. It's
Nice.
nice. It's weird. I've got like this indention growing right here. And it's like, what is this? I've been a pretty skinny guy.
Nice.
So yes, thank you for that. And those of you listening in too, let's talk about ego just a little bit. Let's talk about arrogance, a vice. And let's also talk about the mirrored virtue, confidence. Leaders, great leaders are confident. I can be beautiful and recognize that Lorraine is just as beautiful. and recognize that all of you are just as beautiful? What if our world switched and transitioned to where we no longer labeled the virtue of confidence as the vice of cockiness and arrogance?
Mhm.
How would our conversations change in life if we could appreciate each other's values, virtues, our growth, and all the good things that we're doing? That's what we're creating at First Class
Mhm.
Business and Vision Pros. Lorraine, what are your thoughts on that? How do we inspire that?
I First off, I love the idea of both. I'm getting a little feedback. Um, I love the idea of both getting comfortable with confidence. I also appreciate humility, not when it's a humble brag.
Mhm.
When it's not when you say something and you're looking for someone to tell you, no, 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 you're better than that. But
Right.
I think confidence when you are leading an organization and you are trying to get people to change their behavior, act in a certain way, support a certain cause, I think confidence is absolutely critical because they have to believe, number one, that you believe, and they have to believe that you can do. At the same time,
Mhm.
when you succeed, acknowledging that you did not do it on your own.
Huge.
No matter how good you are, no matter how much you toil day, night, whatever, you ain't living in a bubble. There are
Yes.
people around you who have made it easier for you to be successful, whether it's dropping off food sometime
Yep.
or running an errand or actually proofreading that brilliant manuscript you wrote. Whatever
Correct.
whatever it is, there have been contributions along the way. And so I think those two joint
Huge.
virtues need to go together.
I'll say with that example of the people in your life, maybe and maybe not. And here's why. Um there is one that often gets left out in my opinion. And I know this is projecting a little bit on the audience, but I'm an unapologetic Christian, right? And that's God. Right? God is always there. We also know the story of Job. And for those believers out there, know that Job was abandoned by literally everybody. It doesn't mean people didn't contribute at some point along the way, but there came a point in time where it was just God by his side. And I think that's the one that oftentimes we neglect to acknowledge. And I want to go back to this topic of humility because our world is so lost when it comes to the true definition of humility. 100% lost. Check this out. This is hilarious. I just Googled it because it's constantly changing. Definitions of words are always changing. We are always learning. The dictionary people are always learning. Here's AI. And check out how they define humility. It says humility is, right? And then they don't define it. They just use the word to define itself. But they say humility is having a lack of pride or arrogance. That's a bullcrap definition. You don't define happiness by saying it's the opposite of sadness. You
Mm-mm.
actually have to create a true definition. But worse, even in the Oxford languages here, it says humility is a modest or a low view of one's own importance. Once again, this is absolutely bullcrap. This is our language getting twisted and twisted to the point where we can't even recognize virtues. If you go back and you look at the Aramaic or the Judaism definitions of humility, what humility actually means and what it's supposed to be is a full appreciation of oneself
Mhm.
and a full appreciation for everything else. That definition is the one that I'm 100% aligned with. And if
Mhm.
we can get a full appreciation where we don't take anything away from anybody, because there's no
Mm.
need to,
Mm-mm.
and we are confident about who we are, that is a beautiful setup for leaders to then encourage others to put their best foot forward.
And I think you kind of touched on it and then went off in a different direction.
What's that?
Being uh, having a sense of humility is not necessarily being humble. I think as people talk about, being humble, a lot of time, or maybe it is the perception that that gets tied much more to the low self-esteem. I don't really deserve this.
Which is not the true definition of that word.
No, and
So
so yeah, and so when I think of humility, I definitely agree and gravitate towards the
humble's a
description
good
that you.
word. Humble's a good word, and modern society has ruined it, just like the word
Mhm,
gay meant happiness, right? So there's the original definitions, there's the ability to withstand the world. I would not go on CNN and talk about this, or
mm-mm,
Fox, because the way they want to converse is a different style than what this environment is. But in
yeah,
Vision Pros Live, we're in an environment of people who are seeking holistic growth. And people who
absolutely.
seek holistic growth and well-being understand that definitions of words, or they're at least starting to understand that the definitions of words change based on culture, based
Mhm,
on context, based on cadence, based on tone. And the whole point here is I want my audience to know that there is no reason to put yourself down and
mm,
self-deprecate. There's zero reason to hold back how good you could feel and should feel about your passions and your virtues. There's no arrogance whatsoever, no
mhm,
vice in
mhm,
appreciating what you've been given and what you're able to accomplish. And so no bars.
mhm.
Be your best self and be grateful that you are. That is my hope for those people who come to the show.
And that is such an attractive characteristic when you are doing that, when you are confident, when you are appreciating the people around you, the opportunities, the inspiration, the luck,
Mhm.
whatever it is, when you are doing those things and acknowledging that all of that is contributing to you moving forward, it brings people in. They want to be a part. They want to be a
Yeah.
part of that environment where there is appreciation.
Yeah.
I,
It's
I,
powerful. It feels so good.
I did something so silly. I took over a department one time, and it was I can't even begin to talk about the negative energy I stepped into. And on my journey to figure out what was going on there, one of the things I realized is nobody ever said thank you.
Mhm.
And so I bought a stack of these little note cards, and I think there were 48 people on the team, and randomly something would happen during the day, and I would just write one sentence, and I would leave it on their desk at the end of the day because I always kind of worked a little bit later. And they would come in the morning, and there'd be this little tent card sitting on their desk. And just that shifting the culture to appreciation it just brought such light and such energy. And it was funny because after I did it for a while, I noticed they started saying it to each other.
Yeah.
And
Ripple effect.
that's really where the culture changes. And that's really, to me, when we're talking about, what's a good leader versus a bad leader, it's less about what you say and more about what you do. And can you,
Yeah,
with your behavior, inspire others to shift their behavior?
for sure. And I want to come back to that topic. We're going to be coming back to the good and the bad. First thing I want to ask you, and an audience, when we go through these interviews, we interview a couple hundred people, every year. Maybe more than I think this year we've interviewed almost 500 already. And we sometimes remember what we talked about. We sometimes didn't. We had the question, what's the worst leadership experience you've ever had? What's the best leadership experience you've ever had? And the powerful lessons. Did we talk about those three on our last episode, Lorraine? Or is that something we should revisit? Or should we move forward with the good and the bad leadership experiences? This is your call today.
I think I may have answered them. And so now, as I'm struggling to remember, I don't know that I want to necessarily answer again, going, well, Lorraine, you said this was your worst leadership experience. Um,
Well, here, let me play
but
devil's advocate on that. And in fact, I call it angel's advocate. Right? If I learned the best secret from Richard Branson, right, and I got to listen to him talk about it for 5 minutes only,
Mhm.
why in the world would I not want to listen to that again and get the
Mhm.
150-minute version of what it is that he's really trying to help me share with? So again, I'm not pushing you that way, only saying we can go any direction you want, knowing that the ability to dive deep in the well is something that at Vision Pros we appreciate tremendously.
So I'm totally good with that. When you asked it right now, the
Which one?
the thing that popped, the worst leadership experience, the thing
Oh,
that popped into my head may or may not be what I talked about before.
correct.
But this was a leader who was absolutely not confident. And I remember that he did something that I thought was just so awful. He would call a staff meeting for Saturday morning. And, we were working in retail. Yes, we were in the buying office. So we pretty much were working Monday to Friday, but we had all just come out of the environment where we were working in the stores. So we really valued our Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because he really did not have much life outside of this job and wanted to make sure that he had something to do on Saturday morning. And it was the most awful thing because we had all given, it's selfish, and we'd all given 2 to 3 years of our life giving up Saturday mornings. And quite honestly, when you rolled into the holidays, you still were in the stores on the weekends. And so we solved the problem. There were 5 of us on the team, and every Friday, we would rotate. Hey, now I'm going to be working tomorrow. Can we talk about this? And the other 4 of us got Saturday off.
Wow.
And it was so awful because he had so little value for who we were and the jobs we were doing and how hard. I mean, as you know, when you're a retail buyer, you're traveling. We had 11 stores in Dallas and 2 in Phoenix, Arizona. And so we were on the road between the stores all the time, which meant that, Dallas traffic just kept getting worse and worse. And so it could mean that we would get home at 7:00 at night, even if we left the store at 5:30 or 6. And we were showing up on weekends, and it just so little concern for what his needs were. And that was one of the things that, as I went forward, I had a much higher sensitivity to the value of the time that people were committing and having those conversations about what's the best use of your time.
We're going to shift right into this as well because of you sparked a passion of mine. So these bad leaders versus good leaders opportunity to talk about that. And there's leaders themselves, by the way. There's also leadership experiences. I would make a terrible leader as a Chinese teacher because I don't speak Chinese.
Okay, that's a problem.
I don't know anything about the culture either. So that would not be something that I could lead in. So many visionaries assume that they have to be the leader for everything that they do with their visions, or that they have to be the chief executive officer because they can't afford to bring somebody in. There's so many limiting beliefs we put in ourselves in relation to leadership, but that is not a role. Those are not roles. I shouldn't limit it to one because there are so many aspects. Leading clients is very different than leading prospects, which is very different than leading PR and media personnel that might be interested in promoting you. There's so many leadership opportunities that, I want to explore with you. Let's get beyond the basics. Because again, I think a lot of the visionaries who come and watch the show, they understand leadership at a bigger level and they need some of the nuanced guidance, some of the things that don't get talked about. So let's hit hard on this one. What's a good leader? What's a bad leader? And how do we explore leadership as a more holistic view?
Okay, I want to take the third question and then I'll come back to good and bad.
Sounds great.
When years ago, I did this experiential training course and I taught it for years. And in the experiment, you play a game and you tell people that there's an old man who's got information and most people ignore him and go off and die in the desert. Okay, that's the short version. But the analogy is that when you look at your organization, you have to find the old man. And the old man is the person that has the information or the influence. The old man might be the department secretary. The old man might be the person who's been there 25 years and has never risen through the ranks.
Mm.
When, in many times in my career, I have been in a situation where I needed to get something done. And the person that I went to with my questions, the person who solved the problem, the person who could make the connection that I needed to make, did not have the title. But if you asked anybody in the environment, when a new policy came out, when a new procedure was introduced, everybody in the room would turn and look at that person to see their reaction.
Mm.
Because by the contributions they made to the organization, by the status they had gained, by longevity, by the fact that they were the keeper of the keys and they knew where the bodies were buried,
Mhm.
they could lead, they could influence. And so as a manager, when I came into a department and I came into a job and I was, I think I was 10 to 20 years younger than everybody I was supervising. So I had that working against me.
Yep.
I was a girl. I had that working against me.
Sure.
And so what I did in the first couple of weeks is I went into meetings and I just had conversations and I would throw out ideas and I would just watch which way the heads turned.
Mhm.
And then when I had something that I really cared about, I went to Mike and I talked to Mike.
Right.
And then the next time I threw out an idea,
Mike was there to back you up.
yes, yes.
So smart.
So, part of being a leader is recognizing you're not always the most influential person in the room.
Very rarely are you.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
sometimes you are, but
But it also comes back to bite you when you leverage that card, because when you're wrong,
mhm,
then that deteriorates the value of your
mhm.
leadership. And
Uh,
so it's an ego play at the end of the day. If
yeah.
you only focus on that, you miss out on the opportunity to empower people to carry the load with you. But if you're a great leader, right, or if you have that authority and you empower somebody else to step up and kind of be the microphone for what you're doing, and they fail, right, you can still ruin that as a leader by going at them. But
Mhm,
if you uplift them and
mhm,
you show them that, guys, I also could have been prone to make this same
mhm,
mistake.
mhm,
So let's applaud so and so for giving their best on this, and
mhm.
who's got a new idea to help us with this pivot. Right now, you're empowering everybody to realize that it is okay, it is safe. In fact, it is encouraged to make mistakes, because that's also part of growth. So I'm going to switch the subject a little bit. Same topic. We're talking about the relationship, though, of passions and leadership. And, is leadership required for passions, or is it not? How do they relate? So I'll let you lead on this as well.
I think when you're passionate, um, when you're really passionate, you will attract people to your idea. Okay. At that moment, you need to decide, are you the one to carry the ball forward? This trips up a lot of founders. It trips up a
Yes.
lot of entrepreneurs, because what you're doing in that moment, you have to let go.
Yeah.
And when you do, when you identify somebody who actually has the skills to take your idea forward, the most successful leaders, I think, surround themselves with people who are smarter than they are, cultivate those opportunities. I always took it as a personal victory when someone on my team was recruited by another department head, was recruited by another company. Was I sad to lose them? Yes. but was it a victory that I had helped this person who was excited and smart find that next opportunity and take with them the things they learned with me?
Mm.
And was I grateful for the time they were with me? Absolutely. So I think recognizing what your passion or your vision is, and then being able to say, I'm not the person to carry this forward. I'm not the only person who should carry this forward, and figuring out why that is or what that is. Yeah, see, there you are, right in the middle of my
What?
in the middle of my YouTube page. I get sidetracked by pretty pictures, but recognizing that you don't have, like, if you're serious, if this is really your passion and you
Yeah.
want this project to succeed, and you're not the guy, find the guy or the girl who can.
I can tell you right now, visionaries, most of you are not the guy or the gal. You're not.
Mhm.
Your vision, if your vision is holistic, it's going to be inclusive of others. And that
Mhm.
means that others need to be empowered in the process. And learning how to do that, maybe you just need to empower that one person who can empower the others. I think Steve Jobs is a great example of
Mhm.
that, where, he gets a bad rap, as a leader from a lot of people. And yet he was still able to work with hundreds of people. Part of the key for that is he had other nurturing individuals there to help shift and shape that culture into something people wanted to belong to. And that's not a bad thing. In fact, that's a superpower of his, was even though he was known for not getting out of the way, he also knew how to get out of the way. And so
Mhm.
we have to learn, if we want to really scale something people can participate in, how to do just that.
Mhm.
And part of that is, are we able to honor other leaders? One leader who I saw on your website that I love as a person and that I don't know a whole lot about, but I was impressed with her program, I was impressed with her leadership, is Deborah Sunderland.
Oh,
So
yes.
shout out to Deborah, who I saw on that. How do you know Deborah?
I met Deborah originally through a women's networking group online. We've never met face to face. She's been a guest on my podcast. She actually wrote a chapter for, and I think
So
that's
face
where
to
you
face
see her.
through online, but you haven't met in person.
No, but
Okay.
she's been a guest on the show a few times, and we just really connect. We have
Great leader.
fun. And actually, you're going to laugh because I just put together an article for an upcoming newsletter, and I'm featuring our conversation about visionary leadership. And what I always do is I always go back into my library to find other related conversations. And the conversation that I matched with you
Is
is
Deborah.
Deborah.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, we'll have to let her know too that she got included on this episode as well.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
got
But
she's got a very. I remember it was an assessment on leadership that I was like, okay, neat. And it's that creativity and ingenuity,
Mhm,
of vision, that when I see somebody tinkering with stuff, like even if it's at the beginning stage, not the Tony Robbins level,
mhm,
right? It's like, oh, they've got a depth within them, right?
mhm,
That we got to unlock
mhm.
because they've got all sorts of wisdom, even below the surface. Same thing with like the Angry Birds guys. I think that's
Yeah.
just one game.
Mhm,
Imagine what else they're capable of doing
mhm,
and accomplishing as leaders in the world. So, yeah, that's too funny. So, passions and leadership, and these pivots, right? So,
mhm,
again, my hope, visionary, is you realize you don't have to be the best leader, but you do have to care enough about people, in order to find great leaders.
mhm,
And that's usually the role. If you're going to be the chief visionary officer, you might be a great stage presence, but I've seen a lot of great leaders who are great teachers who are
mhm,
absolutely awful to their teams,
mhm,
or who don't know how to manage somebody who goes against their vision, right? They just
mhm,
want to torch them to death. And it's like,
mhm.
there's a reason why it's so important to have others who can make space and not let your ego get the best of you as a visionary who's trying to force what you have on everybody else. That's not healthy. So go ahead. You got a thought.
Well, one of the things I was going to say, and this I think is ties back to the EOS Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Yeah.
And
Gino Wickman.
yep. And it identifies the visionary, the person who can tell the story, the person who can inspire. But a lot of the characteristics of a person who is good at that are not the characteristics of the person who gets the job done.
The integrator.
The integrator. Yes.
You know what? I'm going to call it out. I hate that book. Rocket Fuel. I hate it. And why do we hate things? Right? We hate things because we usually because we want to love it. We want something to be adjusted. There is. I hope Gino Wickman hears me on this because he's a phenomenal leader. That book is so juicy and so great. And at the end of that book, they tell a story about an entrepreneur, a visionary, who refuses to acknowledge and appreciate the value of the integrator for more than a year, even though this integrator has done everything right to build this vision up. And in the book, they justify that leadership. They literally say, you know, we understand entrepreneurs. That's okay. Bullshit. I'm calling it right now. That is not, you do not set entrepreneurs up for success if you do not teach them how to become grateful for that. Not many people, not many integrators will stick around without with an entrepreneur who's not grateful for what they do. It's so easy to learn how to say thank you.
How to say okay.
How to appreciate things.
Go back to my conversation about the little notes earlier. You know, the idea is I acknowledge the need for the two personalities. They may or may not have all the buckets right. But those two personalities, in every job, in every company, in every role I have ever been in, there has always been someone else that is the yin to my yang, or the yang to my yin, however, because I never remember which is which.
Yeah, both of them work, right?
but they are my polar opposite.
Yeah.
I am big picture. The minute I verbalize an idea and I hear it, it's done. Oh, there are details? Yeah, okay, whatever. Having someone who is coming in and saying, no, we have to dot this I, we have to cross this T. And it's not just that they clean up after me, because I turn around and go, okay, you have been tweaking that for a month. It's done. And I have to pry it out of their hands and release it into the world. And so we are good for each other.
Absolutely.
You know, my husband and I are on opposite ends of that spectrum, and we have been married.
I bet no relationships can relate to that out there, right?
No. Okay.
We all understand that to a degree.
Yeah, but we've been married 46 years because we understand where that.
Hey, congratulations! That is huge.
But we've done it because we understand where the handoff is.
Yeah.
When do I come up with the big idea? When do I let him work? And when do I come back and say, okay, this is good now. We're good.
Yeah. I love it. And that book, again, I love the book. What I don't love about it is, again, their attempt, and this is an easy change for 2.0, by the way, Rocket Fuel 2.0, easy adjustment is I just wish more leaders would stop pacifying and coddling entrepreneurs' bad behaviors. That is going to hold them back for far longer than if we could just everybody respects Gino Wickman. Right. And EOS. Very few people would even dare to bother to speak out against anything that's being done. And so if the man made the one adjustment and said, you know what, let's honor the integrators. Hey, let's make sure on the front end, we help these entrepreneurs realize that full appreciation of your team and their well-being will lead to even better results.
Absolutely.
That's the one tiny adjustment. But that book is an absolute masterpiece. So is a great one, and it's built on the backbone of the E-Myth. I will never give a shout out to Rocket Fuel without also tying it to the spine of the book, which is E-Myth. Fantastic resources. So, visionary leaders, thanks for joining us today. You know, we'd love to hear your thoughts too in the comments, and feel free to send us a Loom video too of your thoughts and get passionate with us. We might add it to the segment as a segment of this episode. but sharing your passions, what pivots you've made, why you've made them, and how. We're going to have on the show notes as well how you can get in touch with Lorraine Ball. We'll have some resources down there, some of the things that we talked about, the leaders we talked about, that we recommend diving in deeper with. Let's dive deep into the wells of knowledge and wisdom as we grow. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Vision Pros Live. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time.